Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and many of you have been asking me what's the difference between Haptic Touch and 3D Touch. So I have an iPhone XR, currently the first and only supported device for Haptic Touch, and then I also have an iPhone XS Max to show you the comparison. So the difference between them, technologically speaking, is Haptic Touch is just measuring the widening or flattening of your finger against a solid surface. So as you push here, it's going to recognize that you've pushed a certain point, and then as you push harder, your finger flattens out and makes more electrical connections or capacitive connections on the display, and it recognizes that as a harder press. 3D Touch works differently. It actually has a 3D Touch layer sandwiched in between the displays so that it recognizes the slightest press, and you can kind of see that here as I push. You'll see it can go in and out here a little bit around the edge of the app as I press it. There's different pressure sensitivity levels that it can actually sense. Now, Apple has never been able to implement this on larger displays, including the iPad that we have here. But interestingly enough, they never really announced it, but they do have something similar if we haptic touch on, say, the Files app or an app like LumaFusion. We get similar things. It works on books, but it doesn't work on things like the App Store. So it makes me think that Apple's been planning this for a long time and figuring out how we can get 3D touch into larger displays, because it's hard to implement a pressure layer over this kind of size. So I'm thinking that they've been planning it for a while, but the iPads just don't have the Haptic engine in it, so you're not going to feel it. But with Haptic Touch, it's very similar, although I do feel like you have to press a little bit harder to get it to activate. Now, to show you where it works and doesn't work currently, Apple does say that they're going to be updating it throughout the OS, and maybe we'll see Haptic Touch on the new iPads that are supposed to be announced here in a day or so, or whenever you're watching this, they may have already been announced. But what you can do is press and push a little bit harder, but it doesn't work on any of the home screen apps. So any of these app icons like you can do on a 3D Touch device, it just doesn't work. However, it works in all of the control center areas. So if we 3D press here, we can do the Haptic Touch here, same thing. If we do the same with volume, we get the same thing. And it feels the same. You get the same click feel when you push on that. You can do the same with pretty much anything in here. You get the same experience. It's just a little bit harder to get it to activate in Haptic Touch. Again, the camera, same thing here. So you get the idea. Now, one of the areas most people probably use 3D Touch to begin with is with a keyboard. So if I go to a website, maybe here, and you want to move this cursor, well, if you push this and move it, as long as you do it on the space bar first, it feels pretty much the same as it does on the iPhone XS, XS Max, and all of those with 3D Touch. But the deal is you have to hold down space and push a little bit, and now you've got the same cursor, and you can move your finger anywhere after this kind of loses all of the letters on the keys. So as long as you do that, it's pretty much the exact same thing. One area you don't get it, though, is in notifications. You can clear them all simply by pushing like that, just like you can on a 3D Touch device. But if I go to this and push, nothing happens on the notifications. It just opens the notification. So you don't get that advantage, but I can close them all that way, and I think you get the idea there. But on a notification here, of course, you can just open it and it will open right up. So there's a bunch here, but if you push it, you get different actions or quick replies. You don't get that on an iPhone XR. So hopefully they implement that later on. So at this point, I'm hoping to see this throughout the OS. You don't get it in places like Twitter. Maybe you're in Twitter and you want a 3D Touch or force press or haptic press on a different article to get it to pop up or something like that. It just doesn't work. So you may miss them in those areas. I don't necessarily use in those areas so much. I use them more on these icons, and I will miss it there. So it just depends, but I don't think Apple was able to implement that pressure layer along with a curved edge display that's LCD in this sort of display. So I think that was the challenge, and they decided to do it sort of like Android does it on their devices. So I think that's a great thing to just have in all the OSs, and hopefully they add them back to things like the iPad that we have here. Let me know your thoughts about it, though, in the comments below. If you found any other areas I didn't mention that it does work, I'd love to hear what you have to say. It does work on the lock screen with the flashlight and the camera here. It feels the same too. I actually handed this to someone today, and they said, oh yeah, it's the same thing. So as far as that goes, so it works just fine. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.